client success, and was like, let me tap back in, um, and see what's going on. So, um, yeah, good to see you all.
Always
Nice
welcome for
to meet
sure.
you.
Yeah, I've definitely had people in the community help me in my job search as well. So this definitely a place to help for that.
Absolutely.
And good. Y'all can definitely stay off camera. It's good. Lunch is important. We don't need to be seen. Yeah, whatever you're eating,
Okay.
no
Hi,
judgment.
everyone.
Hey, cool. Well, I'm
Okay,
gonna
this
give it
is
back.
Esther. I'm representing.
Hey,
How are
Esther.
you doing? Yeah, it sounds like a lot of y'all are already 3 hours ahead. My day is just getting started, so I still have a long day ahead of me.
Yeah, could we have if your hands are free, if people just want to put in the chat where they're calling in from, because I'm guessing we got folks from all over the place. In Washington, D, the District of Columbia. Let's go. Atlanta. Yes, yes. All right, Esther. Oh, Virginia, what's up? How are you?
Living the dream, man. How are you doing?
I think that I'm gonna steal your words too. I think living the dream sounds right. I'd like to think somebody right now is taking a nap, dreaming, and wishing they could be living this life. So nothing crazy. Cool. Well, Esther, do you want to kick it off? I mean, I pro when I've timed this, I probably need a solid 40 minutes. So this, I don't ain't gonna be too crazy for me. I don't feel like a time crunch, but love
Okay,
to
you
have
can
some
go ahead
community.
and start.
Cool. Okay.
All right,
Um,
thank you.
Wonderful. Well then, I will introduce myself shortly, but just so I make sure, so that I set expectations for myself, I expected a group of around this size, and actually was like very selfishly hoping to learn a little bit from what everyone's like exposure has been to AI agents. So if people are hoping to just kind of like sit back, eat, have me go through like the content and then we can have some discussion at the end. I'm happy to do it that way if we want it to be interactive, but it would be great to just get a little bit of a vote of like where people are in their work day. So I know like what's going to make this most valuable. But I work at a company where I help companies deploy AI agents in the enterprise. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about like what I've learned, how we approach teaching them about that, kind of like the operating model that we run through with them. And I do a similar presentation over and over and over again. So I don't want this to be autopilot for me. I want to make sure this is really like valuable for the folks that are here. So people want to do discussion at the end, or could we make this a bit of a discussion? What do y'all think?
I'm
I
good with
think we
discussion.
are, yeah, I was like, I think we are open to discussion and learning and also collaborating. That's my preference.
Yeah, awesome. Cool. Just to get a sense from the crew today, who I guess kind of three buckets I'm guessing here. Has anyone like give me a one if you're just like I hear people talking about agents, I know nothing, like I've done nothing with them myself. Two, if hey, I have done some like personal things or tried like building an agent or tried like testing an agent or reading about agents. I know what they do, but I'm in this personal phase. And then three is like, yeah, we do this AI agent thing at work. Cool. 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 All right. Cool. Nice. Okay, great. All right, super helpful. In that case, I have What I'm going to do then is I'm going to cover two things. I'm going to go through like an intro and just be like, AI agents. People say that all the time. I've been on LinkedIn. Someone's talking about that. What do we actually mean by that? A little bit of vocabulary, clear that up. Um, make sure people know I got a few stories. I see some pretty crazy things. I hear some pretty crazy things. These agents are not to be trusted. So even though my job is dependent on getting people to trust these people, I can be real with y'all and talk about, these are the things that the issues to worry about. And then for folks that are a little bit further along that maybe even are implementing them at work, I definitely want to hear how your organization is thinking about it and kind of just present a point of view on how we go into companies and help them like design their automation programs. So yeah, with that, let's um, I'm gonna go ahead and share a screen here. And introduce myself. So I work at a company called N8N. It's literally the letter N, the number eight, the letter N. It's a company that's based in Germany, actually. And I am essentially the head of customer success for North and South America. Small and mighty team. I am growing. We are hiring. So people live in primarily in the East Coast because all most of the team we work with is in Europe and are looking for roles, feel free to shoot me a DM. Got a pretty aggressive hiring target this year, which is exciting. But just as like an intro in terms of like why do I have a point of view on this? What is N8N? What do I do? N8N is a workflow automation company, right? And so basically what we do is we help anyone go from just an idea to building a fully working automation. Um, and one of the things that's really unique about N8N is it was actually an open source community project when the company was first founded in 2019. And so for folks that like aren't as familiar with open source companies or like GitHub or GitHub projects or whatever that means, basically, at first it was the code is available for anyone to use, and it was set up as a free project. And so, like, people basically kind of learn about projects out there. There's lots of really popular ones, like Linux is an open code project. Like, if anyone heard about OpenClaw, that was like an open source project. So these are things where basically people, tinkerers build something in their free time, they host it, give everyone the code to be able to go build it themselves, and then other people can contribute to the code as well and build on top of the code. And so the reason N8N got so popular is like a lot of people were just building this were using this at home and like their free time to like automate stuff at home, right? Like I all the time get on calls with my customers and they'll talk a little bit about like, hey, like I'd started using N8N to automate my shopping list. If I'm in my kitchen and I see that we ran out of milk, like I just text the bot and it adds something to my shopping list and updates my grocery list for the week so that when I'm at the grocery store, like I've just, used text to keep everything in one place. Like that's like a very simple kind of example of what this is. And then over time, what we realize is that like there's a lot of workflows that happen in the workplace. And so the company's built enterprise like protections to help people automate stuff at work. And so talk a little bit about what that means here in a second. Um, so when I talk about automation, I think like the building block of like something that we always share with people is just like at the end of the day, automation and workflows are all about just like getting tasks completed, right? And so if you think about it, a workflow is a series of tasks. I need to get my daughter ready in the morning. I gotta wake her up, brush her teeth, make sure she has something to eat, get her dressed, get her in the car, drive her to daycare, drop her off, come home. Like we literally have like a little play like magnet checklist that she checks each thing off as she does in the morning every morning. And so workflows are just a series of tasks. And when you think about it, every task could be completed in one of three different ways. And so humans are like the gold standard for completing tasks because we are infinitely flexible, and we're intelligent. But if you think about like being in, in a workplace or needing to have humans accomplish tasks, it's not quite scalable to say every time you have more tasks, like let's go get more humans to go do that. And so a long, long time ago, people came up with using code. And so automation is not new. I know we're having this like AI moment and people are all talking about automation today, but people have been doing automation for a very, very, very long time. That's exactly what code is, right? So you can write a script or in Python if someone's a coder to basically say, hey, like, I every single time X happens, do Y. So think of like chatbots, like your the Verizon company like chatbot on the website you might go to when you're moving and you need to like switch get your modem or whatever, get your modem for your house. You go in, you say, hey, here's my modem, here's what I need, and there's like code writing running in the background to basically be like, hey, I need a refund, you know, and then it runs you through the checklist. You hit all the things, and code is running those things. So like automations have been happening for a very long time. That's not crazy, but they're not particularly flexible. Edge cases happen all the time. Think about how often you've been on the phone with customer service and then ultimately gotten to a point where you're like, I'd like to speak with an agent, right? And so where artificial intelligence has really created this boom where everyone has started talking about this way more in the last 2 years, is that because AI is really good for reasoning, right? And so analysis, drafting decisions, coming up with things, and so it can really fill all of the blurry things that code wasn't able to do. But I think it's important to remember that like humans can still accomplish tasks. That's not going to change. Code can still accomplish tasks, and so AI can accomplish tasks. And really, when we want to think about this and be strategic, we really want to think about like who is best suited for each task. What I'm not going to do today is go, give you the, uh, you know, automate the busy work away conversation because one, I don't believe that, and two, there's enough of that in other places. So this is going to be a little bit different. So just my quick like vocabulary check for my folks who are like, I'm just trying to learn something or this is something new. There are three terms that I think people use very interchangeably on the internet if you're out there, and that can be a little I don't think it doesn't make that big of a difference, but it is like helpful to understand exactly what it is people are talking about. And so an automation is just purely something that says like, hey, if X happens, then do Y. And there's lots of things that can automate things. And when it comes to like tech tools, there's so many ways you can do this. So in Slack, you can create a Slack bot that basically says, hey, if I get a message in this channel, heck, email forwarding is an automation. Hey, if an email goes to one person, forward it to this other person. That's a simple automation. Um, AI workflows are a series of steps where you define the step and then AI is involved at just like one specific step that's there. So you're still going through step one. Maybe you're prepping for a QBR. Step one, I'm going to go check any support tickets that a customer has. Step two, I'm going to go check what product request this customer's made. Step three, I'm going to go look at our roadmap and see what are the things that are most relevant to them. Step four, take those three inputs and summarize them into a pre-read email that I'm going to send to the customer. So the AI does that one task in the workflow, and it's involved in one step or a few steps or many steps, but you are still clearly defining here's the workflow and the steps of how something gets done. And then finally, an AI agent is basically just saying, hey, I'm just going to define the goal and AI figures out the rest. So in that same example I just gave for prepping for the QBR, you might just say, create a QBR that's really relevant for this customer. And maybe the agent goes through and reasons and says, actually, like this particular customer doesn't care about product updates at all. So I'm not going to pull any of that there. Or I'm going to go, the problem, the benefit and the problem with this is like the AI agent is making all of the decisions before it uses the AI to figure out like, how am I going to create the content? So you're not actually defining the steps there for it. Um, And so if I just like kind of make this CS here, I think like you could almost think of automation as just like the very junior level task here. And then an agent being something with like a lot more experience once you train it and give it all the context that it needs. So again, associate CM gets the checklist and every step is prescribed and we tell it what to do and it goes through those tasks. Send the welcome email, create the Slack channel, prep the deck. Principal CSM, you might just, you're more senior, tenured people here. You might just like be told, hey, go make this customer successful, and you get to go figure out what that is. I might do some on-site visits. I might pull in product or whatever. I will push the priorities they need, and there's no checklist, and they just kind of build the plan from the goal. And so I use this example to say that while we've had automation for a long time, we're definitely in this moment where automation is kind of growing up and getting more experience. And so that's really how we should think about this. Um, just because someone has 20 years of experience as a principal CSM doesn't mean that they're a particularly effective CSM, right? So there's a lot of different things that could, that are task specific. So maybe someone's been a CSM for 20 years in the marketing space. That doesn't mean that they'd be an excellent CSM at going I see you got Trellis in the background there. At a company like Trellis, there's a fairly technical product, so product suite. So, if you get into different, there's lots of different reasons that someone can be effective regardless of how much information it is or how good the AI is. So I just say that to say like every single month where we see notifications that like the AI is getting better, but that doesn't mean we like that doesn't mean it's getting better at everything generally because it's not infinitely flexible like humans are, right? So it's always just going to be, it's getting, when people say that, the way that they're able to say that is there are scientists and researchers who run benchmark tests, basically saying like, yeah, AI is getting better at like spreadsheets. AI is getting better at coding, maybe. Like you got to be very task specific when you qualify these things. All right, I'm just gonna pause. Like, so for anyone in the group that like was talking about, yeah, we use AI agents. Like, can anyone like share examples of like what they see, how they're doing it? Would love to hear if this resonates, and also if anyone has like, if anyone could say with certainty, oh, you know what? Like, I thought I was doing agents, but really I was doing like AI workflows. Like, that would be really interesting too. Chat or hand raisers, anyone?
I definitely haven't used any agents, but automations, I have for sure.
Okay. Cool. What kind of automations come to mind?
A lot of things related to, so I lead a team of CSMs as well, and understanding, week over week or quarter over quarter, we're not just looking in HubSpot, our CRM, and understanding our, where we are towards our goals, but like other automations I can help and do sanity health checks and know which accounts, key accounts I need to be talking to CSMs about. So I get a automation using Claude in Slack for that. I have a dashboard that I created that pulls in a lot of different stuff using the connectors in Claude related to that, some automations for that dashboard, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, cool. And then the stuff that's pulling in, is it like the same stuff every week? Is it always the same thing?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that actually like might be like um so that's an automation, and then there are examples of that that might be an AI workflow, right? So if you were just like to basically at the end of that say like, hey, summarize, give me like the recap of what's going on every week or something,
Hmm.
that like instantly becomes a workflow. That's cool.
Oh, cool.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, cool. What cloud projects have you had, Daniel? Give me a minute. And then Virginia, yeah, using Gem, custom GPTs, in CX. What about for like, like, do you oversee customer support too,
I
Virginia?
do oversee support.
Yeah,
Um, we have Zendesk right now, so we're looking at how that will work with our platform, but we have some built-in AI agents in our product
yeah.
that were not playing nicely with the agent in Zendesk. So we're kind of at a standstill. We have to choose which direction we're going to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Super interesting. Cool. Um, yeah, I mean, story time, in-person meeting planning, risk research, account mapping. Yeah, I think like this is one of those things too where it's just like, okay, if we gonna do account mapping the same way each time, like that becomes something that's like somewhat repeatable. I'll talk about that here in a second. So those are really good examples Daniel just shared in the chat. Yeah, user outreach, in-person meeting planning. So we tend to see a lot of these examples uh, in marketing and go-to-market examples and support. There's definitely like some like teams where we found like I think like the mar industry would say there's like a lot of really good like AI value like already coming out there. Um, I find story time interesting because like I think one of the challenges when we think about this in an enterprise context is that a lot of companies at like the top level are feeling pressure to kind of like check the box on like we do AI or we turned on AI. So I heard a story of like a really large company, 10,000 plus people that like, was getting a lot of pressure to get started on their AI journey and they turned on Microsoft Copilot and like, people were using Microsoft Copilot to take notes for them on meetings. And then, but like people were actually able to go ask Microsoft Copilot for questions of other people's meetings, and all of a sudden anyone in the company could access the notes from like the executive leadership team's meetings. And that became like a really big like headache for the IT team really quickly, right? So what's really funny about this is that in in the enterprise, when companies say, "Hey, we want everyone in our company to use AI," the conversation typically shifts to like governance, which is a lot of what I think my team deals with. It's like a really funny existential kind of like crisis we deal with all the time, where as customer success managers, we're really focused on like driving adoption. But our stakeholders that we're working with, their primary job is governance, which is like slowing down unsafe adoption. And so there's this healthy tension at all times of like, should we let anyone do everything or not? And the answer is probably not, is probably somewhere in the middle as it is for most things. But it does kind of create a little bit of situations. Has anyone else heard like any like crazy AI stories, like, AI going into deleting a database of customer contacts, anything like that?
Just a lot of hallucinating and some
Yeah.
embarrassing results getting in meetings when the client research was not accurate.
Yeah. I mean, heard a situation recently where an agent was doing the um prep for QBRs and it was like here's the information about like, what happened in the last month and everything that was in all of the information was accurate except for like the timeliness of it. Like all the information was from like a year ago and so you get on that call with like execs doing the QBR for them and people and it's immediately like oh, these people clearly like the way that the AI was surfaced was because it was like, oh, these people clearly used AI. Like none of this stuff has been relevant for a year. So like mistakes that a human would never make. And it's definitely something to think about is like the speed at which like things can be created can become a big uh like there's like a shadow side to that and risk that you have to be aware of. Just reading what Miles just said here. Use my company's agents to map out decision makers in my book of business. Get signaled when there's movement. Yeah, yeah, that's really good, right? So there's almost always going to be this like kind of human in the loop element here that kind of helps support when there's a lot of really important tasks here. But one of the things I think that we found is like, you know, being in a company that's goal is to try and just get companies to automate as many things as possible. And we all have access to a platform where we're able to do that our own. You have to come up with like a clear guideline for when you shouldn't do something. And so there's a lot of companies that we've talked to where they've said like we have thousands or millions of agents now, or we have four tools that have all bolted on an AI agent like add-on, and we don't know when to use which one, or there's three note takers, like AI note takers, and like which one becomes the source of truth. And so really like it's not so much the functionality that becomes the challenge in enterprise, it's the systems thinking to like take a step back and basically be like, what value are we going to achieve here? And so like I use this is just like framework with my like very small team in terms of just like this is how we should think about it. Like automate things that are repetitive and time consuming when you have a clear process definition and it's measurable. And so a very good example would come up with like, I oversee a high touch team of CSMs, but we also have a scaled segment. And like uh very quickly our CS team was kind of running into like the decisions of like what emails should we automate to our customers, right? Like and what should be high touch versus what should be tech touch? Like where do we like find time savings? And so I think for me it's like really like why don't we start with doing everything manual, figuring out like, what is the thing that if you didn't do it manually, it actually wouldn't move the needle at all. There's a lot of things that we just automate because it's easy to automate it. But like, what if you actually, like, sometimes the decision is just like stop doing the thing. And I think automation has made it harder to like be ruthless about like actually like that thing we're doing doesn't actually get any value. We're not measuring any value out of it. And so like I always just tell my team like if you do something manually like 7 times in a row and you know that it's so valuable you can't stop doing it because it was so valuable. Like we have a red kind of like a red accounts approach. We call them ICU accounts, which is a little morbid, but that is what it is. And it's like that's an extremely important process for us because it gets visibility to like product leaders, engineering leaders, CS leaders, everything about like something going on with one of our large strategic accounts. But it takes like a really long time to like write the update every week. But if it's something that I'm like, yeah, I'm manually going to do this thing every week, and it's the same update every week, we should go automate. We should go automate getting the information for that, right? So those are some. That's just a little bit of like kind of I wanted to share personal stories of like how I think about this, because it is going to get easier and easier and easier to spin these agents up. Mark Zuckerberg a little bit ago basically said that he estimated that there'd be like millions to billions of agents eventually, and that like there'll be actually like far more agents in every workspace than there are like people. And if you follow the news, they just had like another round of layoffs like recently. So like th this I'll talk about that in a second, but like this is definitely going to change a lot of things. And so all of the things that I talk about, like just to share, my ask would be this is something that my company shares with folks. There's definitely nothing private or sensitive here, but like I'm sharing this with this community because I want this community to get value out of this, and it's not something I just put out there into the world. But this is something that we as a customer success team do to go like help consult companies on like how they should think about automation. Um, so the first thing is like not having an ego about it. So like I work in an automation company. Companies spend um, anywhere from $20,000 to 7+ figures, 8+ figures to get access to our software, right? So like huge spectrum here of value that the people that are spending seven figures plus, like at some level, they figured they would get more value, more ROI on that than what they're doing. Um, no matter how much a company is spending on automation with us, like the first thing we come into it with having, low ego is recognizing you're not the only automation tool in play, right? So because of what I was sharing earlier, there's still things you could use automations for. There's still things you can write code for. There's still things you can have AI workflows tools for. So um, even in large enterprises where some of your competitors might be tools that other teams are using. Even if there wasn't that, like the company made a mandate to say everyone has to use N8N, there's still other software tools that there's AI involved. So when you think of the operating model, it's very important to come in here and think about this like holistically and not just with like one tool or when should I use ChatGPT or when should I use Claude or whatever. And it's recognizing that Zendesk has automation, like Virginia was talking about. Like Claude Code might have it. I might be able to build my own agents. And so what we typically kind of come and tell people is like with that context in mind, there's three things that's going to kill like progress in the automation, any automation initiatives you might do from a company perspective. Um, Wild West means there's no ownership. Anyone builds anything. Nobody knows what to call when it breaks. Like when we come to a company and say, hey, we want to help you design your automation operating model, the outcome of that should be that, in a perfect world, anyone at the company knows um, what they uh, what they need knows there's a way to go, there's a process for how automations are built, who maintains them, who which teams use which things, how do I know what automation tool to use for what task, and that's very easy for our end users to go access, right? And so that's a little bit of like one of the things we're trying to solve for this here is like making it easy for end users to know like what automation is best for what tasks. And then for anyone that's on the call that's a leader, like I would really encourage you to think about like, kind of like doing some thought exercises on that on your team. Like you don't have to define that yourself. Like maybe that's something you give to someone on the team to define, but making it really easy for everyone to know what do we use for what task. I touched on this a bit earlier, but like governance friction can be ultimately this is a risk game, right? And so if you have a culture where no one is allowed to do anything unless it goes through 8 levels of approval for anything, that could literally be like, hey, we changed our CS process and now we want to change the name of a field in Salesforce. And you have to go through 8 levels of approval to do that at your company. Um, that is the reality of the culture that you're in, right? And so I think like what's unique and fun about my job, I think, is just like no matter what I recommend is like best in class companies do X, Y, Z. I guess I think a customer success manager is always going to have this like creative job of being able to come into a company and say, well, how does the best recommendations and practices line up with your culture internally? And so if you've got a culture where we need eight sets of approvals to change a field in Salesforce. That's going to be very, that should be taken into account when you think about rolling out AI initiatives or automation initiatives, and you got to figure out like how to do your prioritization. Um, and then like ROI blind spots, again, like I think, you know, not doing anything should always be a decision, and like cutting things should always be a decision. And so, if leadership is asking, what do we get out of doing X or Y or Z, and nobody can answer, like obviously we know this best as customer success, but we should also be thinking about this internally in terms of like the value we get out of the tools we try out as we go. Um, did this resonate with anyone? Has anyone seen this, or is anyone in any of these like failure modes right now at their company where they're like, I really wish we could, like, we've got a real Wild West problem, or we've got a real like governance friction problem?
We
Yeah.
have a serious governance friction problem. We use Turn Zero as our CSP, and it has been 8 months now that we've had about 40% of our customers. There's no usage data going
Mhm.
into our CSP and going through who owns what that can transfer the data, getting it all reapproved, reintroducing everyone on the tech side of the house to what it is we do in the CSP and why it's essential that we have usage data. Um, it's been it's been a really long time. So trying to do anything with AI, most of what I've been doing, I have to like do it on my own outside of work somehow and then explain the use case and then try to go through getting all of the permissions and access. Um, in fact, I just asked a couple days ago if I could have access to N8N, and I'm like being grilled like it's the CIA. Like, what do you want to do with it? Why do you want it? You're
Yeah.
customer facing. What are you going to try to do? So we have a lot of friction when it comes to trying to do something new, especially because we're not on the tech side of the house.
Right, right. Makes a ton of sense. Any other story like Wild West or ROI blind spot, or like I'm asked to do a million things. I don't know what any of them are, what or any of them are for. Daniel, nice. Oh, that's an interesting theory, right? Around, so Daniel posted in the chat. Younger people in leadership might help adoption as of right now. I would say all I know for certain is that there's a lot of research around like different generations in general have different approaches to technology and whatnot, and information security and stuff like that. Um, but that's definitely that's definitely obviously not always the case, but I definitely could see that influencing it for sure. Um, cool. Well, what we like do with this, and I'm gonna I have the slide, but the slide's kind of boring, so I might actually just show you exactly what we do with companies. Uh, is like there's basically four pillars to address these like three things, right? If you can like answer these questions well, who are the roles in ownership? What are the governance rules? What is our ROI baseline and what are we planning on improving? And like, what is the use case priorities? Like, how are we going to prioritize use cases? If you have these answers for any AI or automation like initiative you have, it's going to make it a lot easier to one, not even like make the business case for something, but two, also to roll something out. So what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to share my screen real quick if I can find my Zoom again. So like this is our N8N operating model. Like it's kind of where I pulled some of the slides from and stuff. And like this was built on Claude. And basically it kind of guides our customers through like, operations, governance, enablement, stuff like that. I'm talking about some of these things that we discuss with customers, but I'm just gonna use like a very simple example around like roles. Like in an ideal world, so we work with a customer like define these things, so who's going to build your automations at your company, who's going to do these things, like who owns the platform, who is as a business leader is signing their name on the value out of something. Like in an ideal world, this would be in our platform, right, for our enterprise users, right? Like they would go in and basically be like, here is the person that's able to credentials are how you authenticate with different integrations. This is the IT lead that's responsible for integrations with the platform. You would in an ideal world, you'd be able to like fill that out in the platform, and then like that person would get all of the permissions that they need automatically like updated in the platform. The product would do it for them. They would get their own like wizard or onboarding wizard that basically says, since you are the credential owner, this is exactly what you need to be able to do. And so like the reality is if I go to my product team and say you should build this in the product, like this is not probably not going to hit up as much as like some core platform features and stuff that our teams are asking for, right? And so, to be creative here, we said, why don't we use AI to make it instead of like having our team go on calls one by one and try to work these through with people and sometimes forget everything, like let's create a little like mini site that we can like guide a customer through exactly what they need to do, right? So like one, I think AI has enabled way more like kind of creativity in these things. And, Virginia, what you said resonated with me in the sense of like sometimes you just gotta build something by yourself. And in companies that have the eight layers of approvals to change a Salesforce field, they're also usually too big to um like they're usually more focused on like catching bad things than they can like preventively stop like thousands of people from doing anything because they're too big to do that, right? So try and figure out like, okay, what's a safe way for me to use AI to like get things done with teams, and like that's a little bit of the example I'm showing here. But we basically kind of walk through this on multiple sessions with our customers to help them get through the model that they want to have. Um, I'm not going to go through it in depth, but just for the sake of time, but like I think like use case prioritization is really interesting for people because like the reality is to do AI or automations or integrations well, it needs to get data from different systems, right? And so sometimes it's just actually really helpful to just do a mapping exercise so that you can understand like what are all of the things we would like to automate, but then actually have a scoring framework for what is the business value you might get out of it? How feasible is it for us to automate this thing? How expensive would it be to automate this thing, either with time, people, processes, SaaS sometimes is the way that, just purchasing a tool to do the thing. How expensive is it to operate? And then like Virginia, you just said data readiness. So imagine if you'd done this exercise before purchasing Turn Zero and you're like, ooh, like data readiness actually requires major changes. that might have actually deprioritized like, that initiative to something else where the data was more ready. I'm obviously making stuff up here, but like, yeah, and then you go through an exercise where you basically just like ask people, you can do this on a micro level with your team, or you can do this, you can bring this no matter what level you are in an organization. You could say, as an individual contributor, you come to your manager and say, hey, I'd really like to map out all of the use cases we could potentially like automate for our team. I promise you, your manager will appreciate that. If you're a first line leader, I promise you, your manager would appreciate that. If you're a senior leader, I promise you, your P&L leader or CFO would appreciate that. So, like, really just have like a real good, firm understanding of all the use cases where you might do something. And hey, we just got an Excel spreadsheet here that just like automates all the math that came from this criteria. And at the end of the day, what we get here is a dashboard that basically says these are the things we should focus on first, right? So all of this is built in an Excel spreadsheet. I'm sure ChatGPT could build this too, but like it's just a real life example or takeaway I hope people have of like you don't need to be like you could be anyone in your company and you could kind of like drive this level of visibility to where like AI and could like make a big impact on you in your context in the enterprise. And the prioritization is so important when we go back to the operating model because let me see, where was I at my deck? Because like I, there was a company I was working with that spent a ton of time integrating three tools that they knew that their company that they felt were going to be really difficult implementations to integrate with their AI agents. And then, like, as soon as they rolled out N8N to their company to say, hey, you can go, you're allowed to like build agents internally now. Um, like everyone there was like 50 requests to integrate with Glean, if anyone's heard of that, which is kind of like an AI like a knowledge management like system. And that was nowhere on their team's like roadmap. And so they were immediately like, crap, everyone wants the way that people want to, build agents, we don't even have the right integration to do it. And so it like massively impacted the rollout. I'll actually like that's like an example of if you don't do the prioritization, then you don't know where to do the tech work on the back end to make the automations work well. Um, if folks are interested, I could just show a quick little agent demo, uh, just to kind of put so that everything's not just on slides, but just kind of put a little visibility to what it is that I've been talking about today. So um, let me just go ahead, share my screen. Um, so just kind of putting together a few of the different like concepts you talked about earlier. Like what is so this is an AI workflow. It is a two-step workflow. And the workflow just happens to have one of the two steps is an AI agent where I don't know what it's going to do, but I have an idea of what it's going to do. And so what's really interesting here is this is in the lower left corner here, this is just going to simulate a chat agent, which basically says like, I'm going to send a chat. This is a system vulnerabilities chatbot where I can get information about any security incidents or issues at any end. And so all an agent is every single agent is like three simple things. It is a chat model or an LLM. So, Anthropic, OpenAI, Grok, all of those. It's a memory store and it's a prompt. So I don't want to get too deep into like what that is there, but this like just very visually shows you, hey, all to make an AI agent work, those are the only three things that you need. Like, so it could be quite simple to build or set up. This is a visual builder for an AI agent. So I'm just going to imagine I just ask this chat, how does N8N handle vulnerabilities? And you can actually see like the steps happening one by one here. So the chat message was received from the chat here in the lower left corner. And um, basically, the agent said, I'm going to go ask ChatGPT this answer. And I got this answer. Now, we don't know, okay, regular updates, patching, security disclosures, secure development practices, whatever. Now, that is the answer you would probably get if any of you just went to ChatGPT right now and asked it, hey, how does N8N handle vulnerabilities? Also, because it's AI, I could ask that question 5 times in a row and I could get 5 different answers that are all similar, pulled from whatever the model said. Um, but maybe what I want to do is actually give this AI agent more context. So I'm just clicking and dragging a database here that has all of our internal information. Internal but publicly allowed to be shared around how this stuff works. So this database has all of our sales enablement documentation in there because when people are going through the sales process and they want to know, hey, how do you handle security things? We've got documentation to answer those questions, right? So all I did was connect that into the agent, and I'm gonna like re-execute that same agent right here in a second. And let me go through and ask it again. How does and it's going to go through that agent. This time it went to the database to pull our internal documentation on how this stuff works. And it came back to the agent with the response. And here's the response this time. Vulnerability scanning, automated tools such as Drata, Sentinel-1, Microsoft Defender, Aikido security standing. So you would never get those answers from like ChatGPT and on the internet, but like that's why agents are popular in an enterprise setting is because I can now hook it up to internal information and use the same thing that I've already learned. I've learned how to use ChatGPT to be effective in my personal productivity. So if I now add some internal tools and knowledge, now I'm getting like specific context for me. And the challenge becomes in the enterprise setting, it's less about building an agent. Like everyone should learn how to do that because this is the way of the future, and more about, how do I make sure that there's the right information is in this database at the right time or for the right teams and like all of that systems thinking so that, the when I told the story earlier where anyone could go to the agent and ask for notes on the executive leadership team's meeting, they had hooked up the wrong data store here essentially to their co-pilot, and so it could give anyone access to the wrong information, right? So permissions, who has access to what, how to do that. That's how companies think about AI agents in the enterprise. And if you can help your team think about how to make this easier, it's a really easy way to like kind of drive value in your company and get folks to what they need. So I'll close out here with just like um as someone who spends a lot of time in this space, like that's a little bit about I started with where did we come from, like what are agents, like how they work today, and then I'll share a little bit about like where from my opinion, I think things are going or things I'm hearing today. And so this page says what's coming. What it really should say is like things smarter people than me have said that I've read and I believe is probably going to happen. So multi-agent systems. So I think more and more you are going to get to like multiple levels of this, where I just showed you a very simple agent, but imagine there's a like the chat at the top basically goes and calls 5 different agents that all go do 5 different things, right? This is already possible today. It's limited in terms of you get like varying levels of accuracy degradation, and it's really hard to audit what decisions were made by what agent in what place in the enterprise. But it's already possible today to build like multi-agent systems. You might see someone talking about it on LinkedIn, but in the enterprise, it's a little bit harder to see this like real companies saying like, yeah, I find this really valuable for the reason I just said. Agents as employees. 2 weeks ago, Microsoft made a big announcement about how they actually released like identities for their agents in their like Microsoft agent ecosystem. So what that means is like anyone at the company that wants to build an agent, that agent has an email inbox. That agent has an identity. That agent, when you go to SSO and you use your email to log into your tool or whatever, like you can now have that level of identity just assigned to each agent. which is useful because like when you think of employee, like the employee life cycle, you hire someone, they get access to systems, they take a new job, you have to turn off those access to systems, and you do that all in an automated way. Basically, having agents have their own identity is going to make it a lot easier for companies to, in the example I just showed with the demo, like move around what agents have access to what data and information as things change in the company. Infinite context. Every single month, these model companies are coming out with ways to figure out how these agents can like retain more memory over time for cheaper. The only limitation right now is like basically like chip is like chip power, electricity, and costs that they're willing to spend. So as they make it cheaper, they're going to make this longer because the more context they are, the stickier their product is for us. And then I do think that, there will be major job disruptions. All right. I cringe a little bit at the everyone's gonna lose their job thing. I think it's very real to recognize that like teams, every product is gonna be redesigned, which means every process is gonna be redesigned, which means teams are gonna redesign their org charts. And so I do think like I'm sensitive to the fact that like people can lose their jobs. Absolutely. That's a real side effect of what we're seeing in this market. And so I just often think about like, how do I future-proof my skills to be employable in a world where like you don't have to, I don't think, uh, 20 years ago, everyone said become a software developer, and that's the most important thing that you can do. And like that entire industry has been disrupted very quickly. What I do think is like soft skills, um, uh, like systems thinking, a lot of those things are things that are like applicable in any work setting, and those are the things that are very important to people. So um, I talk a lot about like in our product prioritization process for our customers, where we have like angry customers who want things, it would be very easy to automate everything from the criticality to how many customers have requested it to how much money they're willing to pay us. But what you can't automate is like me going to a product manager and being like, yo, John, can you please help me out here? I'm getting heat. I really need your help. Like, help me out here. And that like empathy approach is something that like only human CSMs can do to like get outcomes done. So, um, I'm not too worried about the companies that recognize that like people are the ones that like ultimately like, people can help people better than these systems can reason with math. So yeah, I mean, then just in terms of like how I think about the learning strategy, like try it out at home. Obviously, the the more technical you are, the more you can get into the back end of how the agent is like reasoning or making decisions or doing what it wants. So there is high code tools like LangChain where you can build your own agents if you are someone on this call who has some like technical background. Low code tools. There's low code tools like an N8N, we would consider like a low code tool where I was showing you the agent on the back end. There's still some like technical understanding. I was showing you a Pinecone vector database. Like you still need to have a little bit of technical knowledge to know what that is. And then there's no code tools, right? There's tools out there where you don't have to know anything about anything that's going on behind the hood, but you can test these out. Most of them have like free trials. Find out the policies that you have in your org and your company. The better you do that up front, the easier you're going to be able to do the prioritization exercise. And then I'd say just like stay curious. Like I'm always, um, I find that like industry voices like in customer success right now are the ones that are the experimenters right now, and they're really good to follow to like see like what are people experimenting with. But actually like breaking outside of starting to follow some people outside of the customer success industry, I was able to find like researchers and AI like people that actually have worked with machine learning for 20, 30 years. It's like a really great way to actually learn like there are people out there that know how to do this in production safely, and like that's kind of the best way to like learn these practices to bring them into our companies. So with 2 minutes to spare, I hope that was interesting, but and that people got a takeaway. But like, if anyone has any feedback or like something that they would like to learn more about, I would really selfishly like to know like how this landed.
It was really insightful for me. Thank you for taking the time to share your knowledge. I definitely have some more experimenting to do. I feel like I've only scratched the surface of everything that I can do, and so creating an agent is definitely like that next phase for me.
Awesome. Cool, cool, cool. Love seeing the emojis. Yeah. Try new stuff. Like I will say people spend a lot of money on tools like N8N, and sometimes it blows my mind. And they're industries that have really, really tight like security standards. And so someone out there is spending all this money, and so you got to find that like eventually you might find yourself at a company that is all about this stuff, or um you might find that like your company's like policies change. And so I just say like experimentation is the best way to just like find this out. And even if it's automating like your shopping list at home, there are really easy ways to just like test this out. All right. Well, thank you all so much for spending your time with me today. This was cool. This is dope. Hope to see folks more often, and I really, really appreciate everyone coming out and spending some time today.
Thank you. It's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you so If you are doing an opening art, it's supposed to be mesmerizing. She doesn't have the mesmerizing voice. Not on